Demon's Souls is coming to the PS5. Rumors of a Demon's Souls remaster have been floating around for years, and I even wrote a blog post back in 2017 about what I'd like to see in any potential remaster or remake. What we're actually getting goes far beyond a simple remaster. It's more than just Demon's Souls at higher resolution and with a higher frame rate. Bluepoint Games is redeveloping Demon's Souls from the ground up, much like they did with Shadow of the Colossus on the PS4. The scope of this remake means that it's possible and probable that Bluepoint could make changes to mechanics. There's plenty of opportunities to improve Demon's Souls gameplay and also to add ease-of-use features, but there is one controversial feature that I hope Bluepoint keeps, and that is the item burden. Players of Dark Souls may be familiar with the equipment burden. If you equip too much heavy armor and weapons, your character will become burdened, which will limit your ability to dodge roll and I think also slow down your walking and running speed. Demon's Souls had an equip burden that worked pretty much identically to Dark Souls, but Demon's Souls had an additional weight burden that accounted for your entire inventory, not just the items you have equipped. This item burden prevented the player from being able to carry around excess weapons and armor in your inventory so that you could switch to it at any time during any level, or for any situation. Dark Souls retained the equip burden, but it dropped the item burden, possibly as a result of its change to a single interconnected world. Dark Souls is, of course, famous for its brilliant world design, which created a complex vertical helix of interconnected levels. With some exceptions, every part of the map is connected to every other part of the map via clever shortcuts, and the distance between can be traversed by foot. In fact, for the first half of the game, you have to travel the map on foot and take advantage of those shortcuts, because fast travel is not unlocked until the midpoint of the game. The end effect for Dark Souls is that the character does not have convenient access to a central hub location. Firelink Shrine in Dark Souls fills much of a similar role as the Nexus in Demon's Souls, but you cannot warp to Firelink for the first half of the game. You have to walk. This means that you can't easily dump excess gear or items at Firelink, which means you have to carry everything with you, which means the item burden of Demon's Souls doesn't make as much sense in the context of Dark Souls. Granted, FromSoft did include a bottomless box item that allows you to stow away excess gears at a bonfire, similar to the Bag of Holding in Dungeons & Dragons. They could have easily just built the bottomless box functionality into the bonfires of Dark Souls by default and maintained the item burden. But for whatever reason, they opted not to, and the lack of an item burden mechanic makes the bottomless box feature, completely unnecessary. In fact, the sequels to Dark Souls didn't even include the bottomless box at all. Demon's Souls, on the other hand, does have a central hub location, the Nexus, that makes it somewhat convenient to drop off or pick up equipment on your way between archstones. The item burden in Demon's Souls did create several problems for that game. For one thing, it was inconvenient to have to travel back to the Nexus to pick up or drop off items or gear if you're just going to be going back to the same level again. Having a limited amount of inventory weight also meant that players might be stuck in situations in which they are unable to pick up some loot in a level. Furthermore, failing to pick up certain loot, such as the upgrade stones dropped by crystal lizards, could result in that loot permanently disappearing from the game, becoming inaccessible to the player in the current playthrough. This was particularly problematic because Demon's Souls crystal lizards only had finite respawns, unlike the crystal lizards of Dark Souls, which keep respawning until you kill them. These problems, I think, make the item burden an unpopular mechanic in Demon's Souls, and I would not be surprised if Bluepoint decides to remove the feature. However, I really hope that they don't remove it, as I feel like it is highly likely to make Demon's Souls a lesser experience. The most obvious impact that the removal of the item burden would have would be that the player would never have any reason at all to talk to the Stockpile Thomas character. Thomas is, of course, a character in the Nexus who holds all of your excess items and gear for you. You have to talk to him to pick up or drop off any items. But if you could keep every item that you ever pick up in your inventory, then why would you ever need to bother visiting Thomas? Never visiting Thomas could potentially leave some players unaware that he has extra dialogue and a side quest associated with him.
Rest assured, your goods are safe and sound with me. Best of luck to you.
The more subtle and, I feel, important effect on the game, however, is that removing the item burden would eliminate some of the challenge and even some of the sense of dread that is associated with going into certain levels in Demon Souls. Demon Souls is different from Dark Souls and Bloodborne in that it has strictly delineated and separate worlds that are connected only by warping to and from the Nexus. Each level has unique environmental and ludic characteristics. The differences between worlds made it much more important in Demon Souls to have the proper equipment and supplies on your character. The item burden, therefore, prevents you from carrying everything with you, which means that before you travel through an archstone into a level, you would have to equip yourself for what you expect to see in that level. You also had to make trade-offs that limited what your character could do in any given excursion into a level. In addition to having your primary character build determined by your starting class and your choices of attribute progressions and weapons, your inventory loadout also creates little mini-builds that are specific to each world or stage. You could go into every level with your favorite set of armor and weapons, but this may put you at a disadvantage depending on which level you are in. Stonefang, for instance, has lots of fire and explosive threats, and if you don't have armor or a shield with decent fire resistance, you might have a hard time. You might also have a hard time if you refuse to take poison resist armor into the Valley of Defilement, and you would instead have to rely on a limited supply of Lotus in order to heal the poison status ailment. Being able to carry every item and piece of equipment that you own into those levels would somewhat trivialize these unique challenges. The player could simply hot swap gear for whatever enemy or environmental hazard is in front of you. This actually happens in Dark Souls. When you get to the bottom of Blighttown, for instance, the deleterious effects of the poison swamp can be largely mitigated simply by throwing on the thief armor and spider shield. You can then take that armor and shield off and put your regular gear back on as soon as you get out of the swamp, or you wander into Quelaag's boss arena. So, yes, the removal of the item burden did simplify inventory management and eliminate some annoying situations that were present in Demon Souls. But it also meant that you never felt like you were ill-prepared for the next level, because you could simply reach into your bottomless pockets and pull out the perfect piece of equipment or any consumable item that would trivialize the challenge. This makes the levels feel less threatening and weakens the sense of dread associated with going into a new level, especially blind on your first playthrough. Having to explicitly prepare and equip yourself for one of Demon Souls' self-contained worlds provided an adventurous texture to Demon Souls that makes it unique among the Soulsborne series. Removing the item burden would eliminate this unique aspect of Demon Souls gameplay, and I think would subtly alter the tone of the whole game in a way that I think would probably make it a lesser experience overall. Bluepoint did do a fantastic job in its remake of Shadow of the Colossus, and I expect Demon Souls to be similarly good. I would be extremely surprised if this turned out to be a disaster like the Silent Hill HD collection. But I do have one subtle complaint with how Bluepoint's remake of Shadow of the Colossus altered the mood of that game, and I don't want to see a similar thing happen to Demon Souls. The original Shadow of the Colossus had a hazy gray filter over the whole game that I feel really helped to create a bleak visual tone. This filter is gone from the remake, with no option to turn it back on. At least there wasn't one at the point where I played the remake. It makes the visuals look more crisp and vivid, which I guess is what you want from an HD remake, right? But it also makes those visuals look less bleak than the original game. It also doesn't help that the trophy notifications provide a celebratory interruption to the otherwise melancholy Colossi death animations, which just completely undercuts the tone of those scenes. Further, the low-resolution textures of rock faces in the original Shadow of the Colossus gave the environment of that game an older, more weathered look that made the Forbidden Lands feel ancient and untouched for millennia. The sparse vegetation also made the map feel more desolate and foreboding. The more rocky and jagged textures of the remake end up making the Forbidden Land look younger, and the increase in vegetation makes it feel more lush and welcoming than in the original. And yes, I do understand that the original textures of Shadow of the Colossus are likely more a matter of technical limitations rather than a conscious design by Team Ico, but that does not make it any less a part of the final art. Sometimes technical limitations have a way of influencing or becoming part of the art itself. In some sense, the Forbidden Lands of the Shadow of the Colossus remake are too pretty, and I feel it diminishes the bleak tone of the original game. And, to Bluepoint's credit, that's like the only real complaint that I have with the PS4 Shadow of the Colossus remake. Everything else is almost a pitch-perfect adaptation of the original PS2 game. If the Demon's Souls remake turns out as well as Bluepoint Shadow of the Colossus remake, I will be very happy with it, and my complaints will likely be as few and as nitpicky as my complaints are with the Shadow of the Colossus remake. I do, however, fear that Demon's Souls' bleak, oppressive atmosphere may also be diminished if Bluepoint takes too many creative licenses. We already know they're changing some enemy designs that take away from their unique aesthetics and make them look more like generic demons from a Doom or Diablo game. The YouTuber Illusory already posted a video about this very topic on his channel, and I completely agree with his sentiment, so I highly suggest you check that video out. These visual changes may diminish Demon's Souls' artistic tone, but removing the item burden in the name of ease of use or whatever would in effect similarly diminish Demon's Souls' unique gameplay tone. Item burden or no, I really hope that Bluepoint retains the slow and deliberate pace of the original game. While I loved Bloodborne and Sekiro for their faster pace of play, that faster pace worked with Bloodborne and Sekiro's unique design aesthetics. I didn't care as much for the faster pace of play of, say, Dark Souls 3. The fast movement speed and attack animations of that game made Dark Souls 3, in my opinion, more about twitch reaction speed and less about the deliberate strategic swordplay and player positioning of Demon's Souls and the first Dark Souls. Now, I also do want to say that just because I want the item burden to stay, it does not mean that there isn't also room for Bluepoint to improve upon the mechanics of Demon's Souls, and even on the item burden mechanic itself. One of the biggest problems with the item burden in Demon's Souls is that it really hurt the viability of heavy armors. Most heavy armor sets in the game would limit the amount of loot that you could pick up in a level before you'd become overburdened, because they were just so heavy. The small amount of extra defense that heavy armor provided really did not make up for this the penalty associated with all this extra weight that you were carrying. As such, avoiding damage altogether was much more important than reducing damage, so light armor and dodge rolling were a dominant part of the Demon's Souls meta. I think the best suggestion for improving heavy armor and making it more viable would be for Bluepoint to add some form of poise. The poise mechanic was something that was added in Dark Souls that allowed characters wearing heavy armor to ignore the stagger from enemy weapons, tank through enemy attacks, and still complete their own attacks. I also think that the archstones within the levels could have their own menus for teleporting to other archstones. There could also be a menu to access Stockpile Thomas from archstones within levels. These changes would prevent the player from having to travel to the Nexus and sit through 2 load screens simply to move between archstones. There would still need to be a reason, however, for players to revisit the Nexus from time to time in order to talk to new characters or experience some of the tendency events that happen there. So maybe this menu should only be accessible from archstones in levels that you've already cleared. I don't know. But they could probably do something here. I also wouldn't mind seeing jumping attacks and charge attacks be added to the Demon Souls arsenal, assuming that it doesn't, like, completely unbalance every weapon in the game. Having more than 8-way directional rolling would also be nice. Lefties out there might appreciate the option to make a genuinely left-handed character who isn't nerfed by gimpy offhand animations. And it would be nice if the world tendency screen were a little bit easier to read. And who knows, maybe Bluepoint will even fix some of the issues with camera and collision boxes that FromSoft still has not figured out. So, yeah, there's room for improvement. I just don't feel like removing the item burden would really qualify as an improvement.